One shots, one shots, one shots. One shots are amazing. But for the longest time, I had no idea how one shot actually worked. I would always just square the envelope and just repeat the same steps I saw in every YouTube video without actually understanding what a one shot was. Same old formula, new video. But if you know me, you know I've made a ton of beats in the last 6 months. This many to be exact. And I would say that 90% of them were made solely from one shots alone. Now, after using one shots for so long, I started to experiment with them, and I found some unique ideas that most people just don't think about when it comes to one shots. So today, my goal isn't that you can use a one shot after this video, but rather that you actually understand what a one shot is. This took me a long time to grasp, so this video will save you countless hours in the DAW. In this video, I'm going to break down what a one shot is, the sampler settings, the envelope, and the miscellaneous effects. So let's just hop straight into it. First of all, what is a one shot? To put it simply, a one shot is an audio recording. Anything can be a one shot. It can be live sounds like a piano. It can be dry synth sounds. It can even be just sound effects like this. I mean, anything can be a one shot, even something as simple as this. That might not sound the greatest, but it's a one shot. Now, one shots are great if you don't have access to certain VSTs or instruments that you don't have, like maybe the electric guitar. I know I got a guitar, an electric one in here somewhere. Oh, this one. Or even this one. So nice. So now you know what a one shot is and why they're so commonly used. Let's hop into the bare bones basics about one shots. When you find a one shot that you like, all you gotta do is take it, drag it into the channel rack. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna take this one shot sample and it's gonna put it into an FL Studio sampler. And this right here is the FL Studio sampler. I know it looks like a lot, but I'm gonna break down everything you need to know about this thing. Let's talk about the sample settings. Now, there's a few things to talk about on this first page of the sampler. Start at the top, we have just a simple on-off. We have a simple pan left and right, which is just gonna pan it from your left ear to your right ear. Perfect. Then we have a volume knob right here, and then we have a pitch knob. Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. All of this stuff right here, you really don't need to worry about. The only thing that you might want to mess with is this declicking mode. If you have a sample and you hear a click in it when it repeats, pretty much all of these are going to have the same effect of getting rid of that pop or that click. They all just have slightly different tonalities, but overall they achieve the same effect of declicking. Honestly, you're just going to want to turn loop points off. Most of the time they're going to just be on. You just want to turn them off. I've never found loop points to be useful ever. I'm sure they have some niche uses. Just turn it off. Just turn it off. And now we have the start offset knob. It's pretty self-explanatory. And if you just look at what it's doing, all that it's doing is changing where the sample starts from. So this is good if you have something where you just want the reverb or you just want the tail of a sound. You can go ahead and turn this start offset. So now all we have is kind of that reverb of the guitar. But for this sample, we're not going to mess with it because we want that full wah-wah. And now we're going to get into the most important part of this page, time stretching. This little box right here is very important. So I just went ahead and dragged our one shot into the playlist just so you guys can see what's going on with this time stretching. If you open up this drop down menu, it's really only going to be 3 settings you want to mess with: resample, stretch, or stretch pro. All of these other settings are more for like dialogue and things like that. So you really don't need to be worrying about that as a producer. So let's start with resample mode. I want you to look at the playlist and see what happens to our clip as I pitch it up and down. If you notice, it's stretching the sample based on the pitch. So if I put it up 8, it's a shorter, quicker sound. If I put it down 8, it's a longer, lower sound. So resample mode is good if you want kind of those slowed down effects. That sounds like almost like a tape stop or a tape recording. And most people will tell you just to put it on stretch right away, but you can actually really achieve some interesting sounds with this resample mode. Now, the other setting we're going to be using a majority of the time is stretch. And notice what happened. What stretch is going to do is it's going to keep the length of the sample the same no matter what the pitch is. So I can mess with this knob all I want. And the length of the actual sample is going to stay the same. And that's just because it's on stretch mode. So you can also change the pitch here. This is just another pitch knob. This time knob is going to change the length of the sample of where you want it to stay at. So you can, make it real short, get something kind of plucky, pitch it up an octave, maybe not so short. And then now we also have Stretch Pro. And the only difference between Stretch and Stretch Pro is this little format knob right here. Pretty much what this does, keeps the pitch the same, but it makes it sound like it's slowed down. If you turn the format down, something that sounds a little bit more like this. Put it up, it's gonna sound more like this. So this is actually a really nice tool for getting some unique sounds out of your one-shots. Now let's look at the pre-computed effects. Now remove DC offset and reverse polarity. You aren't really gonna wanna mess with. This is more for mixing. And at this stage, these two settings aren't as important as they will be later on. But these bottom 4 are gonna be very important. So let's start with the first one, normalize. Now the way that normalize works is it takes your sound and it makes it as loud as possible without it clipping. So this is what it sounds like without it normalized. And if you hit normalize, that's as loud as it's gonna be without it clipping. And you can just look at the waveform and kind of see what's happening. It just makes it as loud as possible, really. Now reverse, this is a very common effect that you hear in trap production. And it does exactly what you think it's gonna do. It just reverses the sample. So this is really useful for sound effects like risers. I mean, this is just the guitar sample, but all you do is reverse it and you got a riser. Fade stereo, what this is gonna do is when this is on and you play your one shot, it's gonna start in the left ear and then go to the right ear. And now this swap stereo button is gonna flip that, so it's gonna start in the right ear and go to the left ear. Perfect. Pretty easy to hear what these settings do. Now below this, we have sample start, which is the same exact thing as start offset, the same exact thing. There's no difference in these two settings. Then we have length, which is the same as sample start, except it cuts it from the back to the front. So if you have a tail that you don't like, you can turn this length knob down and you're gonna get less and less of that sound. I like this tail, so we're gonna turn the length all the way up. And now we have in knob, out knob, the crossfade, and the trim. So the in knob is going to start from the beginning of the sound and it's going to compress the beginning of the sound. So it's easier just to look at it visually to see what's happening. If you look at the waveform, as I turn this in knob up, you'll notice that this initial transient is going to get slowly compressed. And this is super useful if you have a super attacky kind of sound that has a lot of transient and you just kind of want to tame it down. That way it flows. That transient doesn't stick out as much. Now the out knob is the same exact thing as the in knob, except it starts from the end of the sound. So again, let's just look at it in this waveform. Notice how it squishes the end of the sound as opposed to the in knob squishing the beginning of the sound. Perfect. And now we have crossfade and trim. All that trim does is gets rid of any silence in your sample. So if you have silence at the end of your sample, put the trim knob up and it'll just get rid of that. This sample doesn't have that much silence, but you can see there is a little bit right at the end. I don't find myself using this knob very often. Now crossfade, this is an interesting one. What it does is it takes the sample, reverses it, and plays it at the end of the sample. That way, when you're playing it, it loops back into itself. Let me just show you what I mean. So if we turn this crossfade up just a little, you can see visually what's kind of happening. This red line is the mirror line. So anything on this side of the line will be reversed over onto this side. I don't really use crossfade that much, but it is useful to at least know what it does. That's everything that you need to know on this first page of the sampler settings. Let's hop into number 3, the envelope. This page of the sampler, the only thing you're going to want to worry about is this envelope right here. This is how you control your sounds. Let me just explain what I mean. You can ignore this delay knob. 5 knobs that you want to be worried about: attack, the hold, the decay, the sustain, and the release. Now, most one-shot tutorials will tell you do this. Turn the attack down, turn the hold up, turn the decay down, turn the sustain down, and turn the release down. And this is good because it gives you a lot of control over your sound. And what this allows you to do is sound's only going to play when the notes are actually playing. If we have the envelope squared like this, and we have a note playing, the sound is going to stop as soon as the note stops. So just listen to what I mean. As soon as the note stops, the sound stops. This is super useful to square the envelope, but you must understand what's actually going on here. We start with the attack. When you turn up the attack, all that's happening, the amount of time that it takes for the sound to get to the loudest part. So if I turn the attack up, this sound is going to gradually get louder as the note plays. Now, a pluckier sound is going to have no attack. It's just going to instantly be as loud as possible. But something more like a pad, if we have a little chord here, if you turn the attack up, it's going to gradually build up to that loudest point. So you can kind of hear the difference there between this and that. And that's what the attack does. Now the hold is how long your sound is going to stay at that peak volume. This knob isn't as important. I usually just turn it all the way up. Next setting that's super important is the release. The way I think about release is just like reverb. If you think of it as reverb, you'll understand this. So let's just say we have this note right here. If you have no release, if your release is all the way down and you just have the squared envelope, the sound is going to stop as soon as the note stops. Same thing as earlier. But let's just turn up the release a little bit and see what happens. Do you hear that? It adds a little bit of a reverb type effect to it. The sound still continues to play even after the note has stopped. The two most important knobs are the release and the attack. This is where you're going to get the most control out of your sound. The decay and the sustain are super subtle effects. Essentially what the sustain does is as the note is releasing, higher the sustain is, the longer the note will stay at that peak volume after it's released. And you can kind of see visually with the envelope the shape of the sound. And now the decay, also a very subtle effect. It kind of just goes along with the sustain. It's how quickly the peak sound gets to that sustain level off to the release level. So these knobs are honestly super subtle, and at the beginning, you don't really need to mess with them. The two main knobs that you really want to mess with is the attack and the release. You can get a lot of effects with just the attack and just the release. Perfect. So that is the envelope. Now let's go to my favorite section of the one-shot sampler. Number 4, the miscellaneous effects. So I know this page has a lot of stuff on it, but really the only things that you need to worry about is right here. This first section right here, cut self. What this does, you hit cut self, it's gonna group this sound with itself. Anytime note is playing, if another note happens to be playing at the same time as the previous note, it's actually gonna stop this note from playing and make sure that this note is the one that's playing. So instead of something like this, where these notes might be clashing, and you get that dissonance, when you turn cut self on, it's going to stop this C note before this B note starts. These next two sections are my favorite sections of the sampler. We have the arpeggiator and the delay. Let's just start with the arpeggiator. Let's just build out a simple chord progression here. We're going to go C major to A minor. And if you want to learn how I build out my chord progressions and how I think about it, check out this video here. But let's just listen to what this sounds like. Super nice progression. Okay, so now let's hop into the arpeggiator. What this is going to do, going to arpeggiate the chords for you. Now this X means that it's off. This is an up arpeggiator, down arpeggiator, up down arpeggiator, another up down arpeggiator with slightly different tone, and then a random arpeggiator. So let's just start with the up arpeggiator so you can get a feel for what's going to happen here. So let's just listen to it. Sounds all right, but it's a little fast, right? So what we can do is actually take this time knob up, and this is going to control the time in between each note in the arpeggio. So if we put this up to 2, let's mess around with this time knob and get different arpeggiations. Find something that you like. I'm going to put this up to 2, and all of these different settings are going to have slightly different arpeggios. So let's just go through them and just see what they all sound like. So this is the up one. Here's down. Here's up, down. And then here's another up, down. And why not try random? Now this gate is going to control how long each note of the arpeggio plays. So let's just listen to see what that sounds like. So if you want a little bit more of a pluckier arpeggio, you can turn the gate down and get something that sounds a little bit more like that. Or keep it up and keep that sustain. Now this range number is very important. What this is going to do is control the octaves that the arpeggio plays through. Right now it's on 1. So this arpeggio is playing just from A4 to G5. And you can see the notes that it's playing, right? Now if I put this range up to 2 and play it, you're going to notice how it's playing the same notes except up a full octave. So it's going to go through 2 octaves of these chords, hence the range being 2. And the cool thing is you don't need to place these notes. It'll play the notes for you. So that's the arpeggiator. I love this tool. It's amazing. Let's go over to the echo/delay. This one's pretty self-explanatory. If you know what delay is, this is just a built-in delay into the one-shot sampler. So this is actually going to save you a ton of CPU as opposed to adding delay plugins later. when you can just add it straight up to the one shot. Mod X and Mod Y is just a filter. You don't really need to worry about that. Pitch, I never really touch. Pitch controls the pitch of the echo. Time controls the time that the echo plays. The feed controls the volume of the echo. And of course, this echo number controls how many echoes you want to hear. So let's just give an example. 2 echoes, put the delay time on 2, and we'll put the feed at about 50%. And you can just kind of mess around with this time and feed knob until you find something that you like. I'm going to put this up to 4. And we're going to put the echoes on 3. Nice. So you can get some really nice sounds from pre-computed effects before you even add any effects in the mixer. Now there's also this ping pong mode here where if you turn this on and you move the pan, that sounds really nice. And you can just pan it from left and right. And this ping pong mode is going to cause the echo to go back and forth between each ear. Super nice effect. Super nice effect. Do a bunch of echoes. Let's do a bunch of echoes with just a little bit of feed. And let's put the time back up to 4. So you can get some crazy effects with these built in to the sampler itself. All right, so that is one shots for you. The one shot sampler itself, there's so many different things you can do. So honestly, I would suggest just hopping in and just messing around, flipping knobs and just seeing what they do. Thank you for watching all the way through. I really appreciate that. If you have any questions, let me know below, as well as what you want to see next. Again, thank you, and I will see you when I see you.